The rain hammered against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Alaric, a software engineer, had built a life with Bronwyn. We'd met at university, two awkward souls drawn together by a shared love of old movies and quiet evenings. Our life was simple, predictable, and I thought happy. But lately, things had been off. Bronwyn, always an early riser, had started sleeping in, claiming exhaustion. Her phone, usually left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now clutched to her like a lifeline. The laughter that once filled our home had been replaced by a strained silence. I chalked it up to stress at her work as a local librarian. The library was facing budget cuts, and she was understandably worried. I tried to be supportive, making her tea, running errands, offering a listening ear. But my efforts seemed to bounce off her like raindrops on a window pane. The first real crack appeared a few weeks ago. Bronwyn had told me she was going to a book club meeting on Tuesday evening. I didn't think anything of it. I made myself a simple dinner, settled in with a good book, and drifted off to sleep. I woke up around 1 a.m. and Bronwyn wasn't home. I figured the meeting had run late, maybe they'd gone out for drinks afterward. But a knot of unease tightened in my stomach. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I sent a text, "Everything okay? Just checking in." No response. I tossed and turned for hours, unable to shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Just as dawn began to paint the sky, I heard the key turning in the lock. Bronwyn slipped into the bedroom, her face pale and drawn. "Sorry I'm late," she whispered. "The meeting went longer than expected, and then we all went for coffee." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. But something in her eyes, a flicker of guilt or fear, made me doubt. I asked, "Which cafe did you go to?" She hesitated for a moment, then said, "The one near the library, the Bookworm's Nook." "That's funny," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "It's been closed for renovations for the past month." Her face flushed. "Oh," she stammered, "I must have gotten the name wrong. It was the Coffee Bean, that's it." The Coffee Bean was on the other side of town, and it closed at 10 p.m. I didn't push it. I didn't want to believe what my gut was telling me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was letting my insecurities get the better of me. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow, feeding on my fears and anxieties. Over the next few weeks, the lies continued, subtle at first, then bolder, more brazen. Bronwyn started taking business trips to London, claiming she needed to attend library conferences. She'd come back exhausted and distant, barely acknowledging my presence. Her excuses became increasingly flimsy, her stories riddled with inconsistencies. I tried to talk to her about it, to ask her what was going on, but she'd brushed me off, accusing me of being controlling and insecure. "Can't I have a life outside of you, Alaric?" she'd snap. I felt like I was losing her, that the woman I loved was slipping away, replaced by a stranger. I started to feel like a fool, a pathetic, clueless husband being led around by the nose. I confided in my old friend Kieran, a pragmatic and no-nonsense mechanic who had always been brutally honest with me. "Alaric," he said after listening to my woes, "you need to find out what's really going on. You can't live like this, consumed by doubt and suspicion." Kieran suggested I hire a private investigator. I balked at the idea. It felt dirty, invasive, but I was desperate. I couldn't bear the uncertainty any longer. So I swallowed my pride and contacted a local investigator named Meredith. She was professional, discreet, and surprisingly empathetic. I told her everything about Bronwyn's lies, her strange behavior, my growing suspicions. Meredith listened patiently, taking notes. "I'll look into it, Alaric," she said. "I'll get you the answers you need." The next few days were agonizing. I was a nervous wreck, jumping at every phone call, obsessively checking my email. I tried to act normal around Bronwyn, but it was difficult. The lies hung between us like a thick fog, suffocating me. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, waiting for the inevitable blow to fall. Then one evening Meredith called. "I have something you need to see, Alaric," she said, her voice grave. She asked me to meet her at her office the following morning. I barely slept that night. My mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I imagined Bronwyn running off with another man, leaving me alone and heartbroken. I imagined her embroiled in some kind of scandal, something that would shatter our carefully constructed life. I felt sick with dread. The next morning, I arrived at Meredith's office, my hands clammy, my heart pounding in my chest. She led me into a small, windowless room and placed a file on the table. "I'm sorry, Alaric," she said, "but I think you need to see this." I opened the file, my hands trembling. Inside were photographs, clear and undeniable. Photographs of Bronwyn in the arms of another man. They were kissing, laughing, holding hands. They looked happy. The man was someone I recognized. Gareth, the new assistant librarian, a young, handsome fellow who had joined Bronwyn's team a few months ago. I had met him a few times. He had always been polite and respectful. There were also copies of emails and text messages, filled with intimate details and whispered promises. They had been having an affair for months. The business trips to London were actually romantic getaways. The late nights at the book club were clandestine meetings in Gareth's apartment. The lies, the deception, the betrayal, it was all there, laid bare in black and white. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The air was sucked out of my lungs. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. 20 years. 20 years of love, loyalty, and trust, shattered in an instant. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me so completely? Meredith placed a hand on my arm. "I'm so sorry, Alaric," she said softly. "Is there anything I can do?" I shook my head, unable to speak. I felt numb, disoriented, like I was floating outside of my own body, watching a tragedy unfold. I left Meredith's office and wandered aimlessly through the streets of Stow-on-the-Wold. The world seemed to tilt around me, the colors too bright, the sounds too loud. I couldn't process what I had just learned. It felt surreal, like a bad dream. I kept expecting to wake up to find Bronwyn beside me, her arms wrapped around me, everything back to normal. But this was no dream. This was reality. My wife, the woman I loved, had been lying to me for months, betraying my trust, shattering my heart. I went home, my mind a blank slate. Bronwyn was there, waiting for me. She looked anxious, her eyes darting around the room. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice tight. I didn't say anything. I simply held out the file, the photographs, the emails. Her face drained of color as she looked at them. Her eyes widened in horror. "Alaric," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can explain," I said, my voice flat. "What is there to explain? I saw the pictures, Bronwyn. I read the emails. You've been having an affair." Tears streamed down her face. "It just happened," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, incredulous. "A months-long affair, romantic getaways, lies upon lease. That's not a mistake, Bronwyn. That's a choice." She tried to touch me, to take my hand, but I recoiled. "Don't," I said, my voice shaking. "Don't touch me. I still love you, Alaric," she pleaded. "Please give me another chance. I'll do anything. Love me," I said, my voice rising. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have betrayed me. You wouldn't have lied to me." I looked around the cottage, the home we had built together, the place where we had shared so many memories. It felt tainted, corrupted by her lies. I couldn't stay there, not for another minute. "I want you to leave," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Leave," she repeated, her eyes wide with shock. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," I said. "Just go. I don't want to see you again." She begged, she pleaded, she cried. She promised to end the affair, to do whatever it took to win me back. But I was done. The trust was broken, the love was gone. I couldn't forgive her. I couldn't forget what she had done. She finally left, her sobs echoing in the empty cottage. I watched her go, my heart aching, my soul shattered. I was alone, adrift in a sea of pain and despair. The next few months were a blur. I moved out of the cottage and into a small apartment in Cheltenham. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain. I saw a therapist who helped me to process my emotions and to begin to heal. I spent time with Kieran, who offered a steady stream of support and encouragement. The divorce was messy and acrimonious. Bronwyn fought me every step of the way, demanding a large settlement and claiming I was being unreasonable. I refused to give in. I wasn't going to let her profit from her betrayal. Eventually, we reached a settlement. I kept the cottage and she got a smaller share of our assets. It wasn't about the money, it was about principle. I wasn't going to let her win. As I started to rebuild my life, I heard whispers about Bronwyn and Gareth. Their affair had become public knowledge, and they were ostracized by their friends and colleagues. Gareth's wife had left him, taking their children with her. Bronwyn had lost her job at the library and was struggling to find work. They were living in a small, run-down flat, barely making ends meet. I didn't feel any satisfaction in their misfortune. It didn't ease my pain or erase the memories, but it did give me a sense of closure. They had made their choices and they were now living with the consequences. One day, about a year after the divorce, I was walking through Cheltenham when I saw Bronwyn. She looked gaunt and tired, her eyes hollow. She was pushing a stroller and beside her walked Gareth, his face etched with worry. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. I could have turned away, pretended I didn't see her, but something compelled me to stop. "Bronwyn," I said, my voice neutral. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Alaric," she said, her voice barely a whisper. We stood there for a moment in silence, the ghosts of our past hanging between us. "This is," she began, gesturing to the stroller. "I know," I said. "Meredith told me." She looked down at the baby, her face softening. "Her name is Ilara," she said. I nodded. "She's beautiful," I said, and I meant it. I looked at Bronwyn, at the lines of worry etched on her face, at the sadness in her eyes. I realized that she wasn't the same woman I had married. The Bronwyn I knew was gone, replaced by someone who had made terrible choices and was now paying the price. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but it was fleeting. I couldn't forgive her, but I could let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me for so long. "I hope you're happy, Bronwyn," I said. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm trying," she said. I nodded again. "Goodbye, Bronwyn," I said, and I walked away. As I walked away, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had survived the betrayal, the heartbreak, the pain. I had rebuilt my life, and I was stronger for it. I knew that I would never forget what Bronwyn had done, but I could finally move on. I could finally be free. I started dating again, cautiously at first, then with more confidence. I met someone new, a kind and compassionate woman named Isolde. She was different from Bronwyn in every way. She was open, honest, and trustworthy. She made me laugh again, and she helped me to believe in love again. One sunny afternoon, Isolde and I were walking along the beach in Brighton, holding hands. I looked at her, at the warmth in her eyes, at the smile on her face. I realized that I had finally found happiness again. I had finally found peace. The rain has stopped now. The sun is shining and the birds are singing. I am sitting in my new apartment looking out at the world. It is not the life I had planned, but it is my life. And I am grateful for it. Betrayal is a devastating experience, one that can leave you feeling lost and broken. But it is also an opportunity for growth and transformation. It is a chance to rebuild your life, to find your strength, and to discover your true potential. It is a reminder that you are stronger than you think, and that you are capable of overcoming even the most difficult challenges.